Hello everyone and welcome to the Encoding, Filtering and Evasion Basics course introduction. My name is Alexis Ahmed and I'm going to be your instructor for this course. Now, before we get started with the course, I always like having a course introduction video that will give you an idea as to what we'll be covering. So what the general outline of the course is. We'll talk a little bit about the prerequisites of the course, as well as, and more importantly, or most importantly, what the learning objectives or learning outcomes are of the course. And the reason I do this is because we will be revisiting these course objectives or learning objectives at the end of this course in the course conclusion video to see whether we actually covered all of the aspects that we wanted to cover. So to begin with, let's get some formalities out of the way. As I've already stated, my name is Alexis Ahmed. I am a senior penetration tester and red teamer at Hackersploit, and I'm also the offensive security instructor here at INE, or red team instructor. If you want to reach out to me, you can do so via my INE email, which is aahmed@ine.com. My social media profiles are also linked here. If you have any questions or comments regarding this particular course, please take a look or please visit INE's official community forum, which is community.ine.com, where you can essentially reach out to me if you have any questions regarding this course or other courses within this learning path. And I'm always active on the forum, so I'll be more than happy to answer your question there. With that being said, to kick things off, let's take a look at the course topic overview. So what is this? Well, this is essentially a high-level topic overview of what we'll be covering in the course. So think of it as a course outline. Now, what is the objective of this course in terms of, why it exists, why it is important, and why it's important for you in the context of becoming a web application security tester or web application penetration tester? Well, based on its title, you can sort of deduce that we'll be taking a look at encoding on the web or within web applications. We'll be taking a look at filtering, and more importantly, how to bypass input filters so that you can identify and exploit input-based vulnerabilities like cross-site scripting vulnerabilities, SQL injection vulnerabilities, command injection vulnerabilities, so on and so forth. And then for the evasion side of things, we're going to be taking a look at, some common security technologies put in place to protect web applications, like web application firewalls, proxies, or even intrusion detection systems for frameworks or server-side languages like PHP. So to kick things off, you'll get an introduction to the three of these concepts or techniques, that being encoding, filtering, and evasion. And specifically around encoding, you'll get an introduction to character set encoding, which will then tie us into HTML encoding. So you'll understand what HTML encoding is, how and why it is implemented in web applications, and how you can perform HTML encoding. We'll then turn our attention to URL encoding, which is frequently performed. The reason this is important is primarily because a lot of web browsers, modern web browsers by default, perform URL encoding, and you may run into cases where that is required as part of the actual exploitation of an input-based vulnerability or vulnerability that's caused by malicious input. We'll also be exploring base64 encoding, as base64 encoding is typically used in web applications for various reasons, of which we will be exploring. And then we'll move into the filtering side of things, where we'll be exploring, client-side filtering, server-side filtering, and how these types of filters can be bypassed, especially in the context of, cross-site scripting vulnerabilities. And this is going to be arguably the most important section of this course. We'll then turn our attention to evasion, where you'll get an introduction to web application firewalls, proxies, and even intrusion detection systems. And then we'll take a look at some basic examples as to how we can evade web application firewalls, proxies, and server-side intrusion detection systems. So we're covering quite a lot, and this course will essentially put all the pieces together with regards to how web applications handle or utilize encoding, input filtering, and of course how you as a web app pen tester can take this knowledge, implement it in terms of bypassing filters and evading security mechanisms that have been put in place to block your malicious input. In terms of the prerequisites for the course, are there any? There are just a couple that you need to have that are really recommended. The first is, of course, having a basic familiarity with the HTTP protocol, and that also extends to HTTPS, which we already covered in the Introduction to Web Application Security Testing course. You also need to have a basic familiarity with OWASP ZAP and Burp Suite, so it is highly recommended that you take a look at the web proxies course before getting into this one, as we will be utilizing web proxies like Burp Suite. You also need to have a basic familiarity with JavaScript, and you can learn more about JavaScript by taking a look at the cross-site scripting attacks course within this same learning path. So pretty much all the prerequisites you need to go through this course are already in other courses. And that's why in terms of the ordering, this particular course comes after those ones. And of course, feel free to go through it if you want to, and then go through the others. It's entirely up to you. But these are the standard prerequisites that you need to have. Nothing too complex or too much. Now, that brings us to the learning objectives, arguably one of the most important aspects of this video and the course conclusion video. So this is where I outline what the learning objectives for this course are. So what you'll be able to do, or what you should know, and what you should be able to do by the end of this course. And as I said, we'll revisit it at the end of the course to see whether we hit each of these learning objectives. So to begin with, by the end of this course, you'll have a good understanding of the importance of encoding on the web and its importance in the functionality of web applications. You'll have a solid understanding of what content and input filtering is, how and why filtering is implemented in web applications, and how server-side and client-side filters can be bypassed. You'll also have a functional understanding of what web application firewalls are, how they work, and how they differ from traditional proxies. You'll have a solid understanding of the most common forms of encoding on the web, how they work, and how and why they're implemented. So specifically talking about HTML encoding, URL encoding, and of course base64 encoding. You'll have the ability to detect and bypass common client-side and server-side filters. So think of cross-site scripting filters, command injection filters, etc. And you'll also be able to bypass or evade rudimentary forms of protection or filtering imposed by proxies or web application firewalls. So as you can see, they're clearly outlined. The learning objectives make sense in terms of what you'll be able to know, or what you will know, and what you'll be able to do at the end of the course. So we're setting the precedent now. And as I said, we'll actually perform a report card check at the end of the course to see whether we hit all of the learning objectives. With that being said, I'm really excited to get started with the course, and I'll be seeing you in the first section of the course.